The call came on a Tuesday morning, the kind of morning when everything felt like it was finally settling. My tea had just steeped, my slippers were warm, and the sun was shining straight through the curtains. Peaceful until the phone rang. "Mrs. Everly?" the man asked, his tone clipped, professional, but too familiar. "This is Owen from Westside Distributors. We've been trying to reach Rachel regarding her outstanding invoices. We were told you were the guarantor on the account." I blinked. "Excuse me. We have her signature and yours on the vendor agreement. The bakery placed recurring orders for over 8 months. Payment has ceased. Bakley, Rachel's café." Gripped the receiver tighter. "She told me everything was fine." "I'm afraid it's not," he said. "We're closing out our books. This will be turned over to collections, unless settled." I ended the call and sat there, heart hammering. I hadn't signed anything, at least not knowingly. Maybe something buried in the paperwork, disguised in fine print. When she begged me to just review this real quick before launch, I thought we'd moved past that kind of thing. I thought she was finally standing on her own 2 feet. I poured the tea out, untouched. Then I grabbed my keys and drove to the place I hadn't dared to step inside since she told me I just didn't understand the new market. I didn't park in front of the cafe. I pulled across the street and sat for a full minute, staring. The closed sign hung at an angle. The once bright chalkboard menu was wiped clean. Trash was visible through the glass door boxes stacked on the counter. Chairs upside down. I got out of the car and walked slowly to the window. A flyer was taped inside. "For sale. Immediate possession." This was how I found out. Not from my daughter. Not from a family conversation. From a creditor. From a printed sign taped to a locked door. I leaned against the cold glass, heart pounding. I thought about all the phone calls she never returned. The text messages that got one-word replies. The way she always brushed me off with a "Don't worry, Mom, I've got it." She didn't have it. Not even close. A couple passed behind me on the sidewalk and glanced inside, whispering to each other. "It's a shame," the woman said. "Used to be cute in there." I stepped back. My chest tightened. Rachel had poured herself into this place. Said it was her fresh start. She painted the walls herself, hired a local barista, swore she'd be profitable within the first 6 months. She asked me for advice, but only so she could argue with it. She said I was old-fashioned. She said I didn't trust her. And when I warned her not to overextend, when I begged her to wait on the expansion loan, she told me to stop undermining her confidence. That was the last real conversation we had. Now here I was, looking into the ghost of her ambition. I tried to push the door open. Locked. I cupped my hands around my eyes and peered deeper inside. The fridge light was on. So was the one above the sink. As if someone had left in a hurry. No closure. No cleanup. I stepped away, trying to ignore the sting in my throat. She hadn't told me anything. No call. No apology. No cry for help. And worst of all, I wasn't surprised. Why didn't she tell me she lost everything? I sat at my old writing desk that evening, staring at a drawer I hadn't opened in nearly a year. It held the things I kept when I didn't know what else to do with them: unfinished thank you notes, sympathy cards, little scraps of pride and pain I wasn't ready to throw away. At the bottom was the letter. I'd written it the day before Rachel opened her cafe, not to give to her, just to get the words out of my chest. The envelope was sealed, but not addressed. I had never planned to mail it. I didn't want to discourage her. I wanted her to believe she could build something, that she didn't need to be me or prove she wasn't me. But now, I needed to remember what I had said back then. I peeled the envelope open slowly. The pages were lined, my handwriting a little slanted from my nerves. "Dear Rachel, I know you won't want to hear this, but I need to say it anyway. There's a difference between dreaming big and risking recklessly. I see the confidence in your eyes, and I remember it from my own younger days. But confidence without planning is just pride in a dress." I paused, heart aching. I remembered her, standing in the middle of the cafe on opening day, holding a clipboard, pretending she wasn't scared. "I am proud of you," the letter continued, "but I am also afraid. I've seen too many businesses sink because no one wanted to hear hard truths. I'll be here for you, but not if you shut me out completely." I reached the last line and read it twice. "Don't confuse confidence with competence, darling." I folded the letter and placed it gently back into the drawer. I couldn't decide if it was kindness or cowardice that kept me from giving it to her. Maybe both. Rachel and I had always danced around each other. each of us waiting for the other to admit fault. When she was little, she clung to me. When she was a teenager, she pulled away hard and fast. Somewhere between college and now, she decided that needing me was a sign of weakness. But this wasn't independence. This was isolation wrapped in ego. I walked into the kitchen, filled the kettle, and turned on the stove. As it hissed, I opened the drawer that held the legal documents she'd once asked me to review. Contracts, bank agreements, leasing terms. I remembered the way she waved them at me. Just sign here, Mom. I don't need a lesson. I had trusted her. Even when I didn't trust her judgment, I trusted her intentions. But intentions don't pay vendors. And now, I was being chased for unpaid balances I never agreed to cover. I turned off the stove without making tea. The silence in the house was different now. It wasn't peaceful anymore. It was heavy, crowded with things unsaid. My phone lit up with an email notification. It was from the listing agent. Subject: interested in 132 Rosewood Lane. We're scheduling private viewings. I didn't remember signing up for updates, but maybe I had clicked something while looking at the flyer. I hovered my finger over the reply button. I wasn't ready to respond, but I also wasn't ready to walk away. Was I too hard on her, or not hard enough? The cafe looked worse in daylight. I returned 2 days later, parking across the street again, heart heavy but my steps firm. I told myself I was just there to look, just to say goodbye to what might have been. But as I crossed the street, I saw a white van pulled up to the side entrance. A man in coveralls stood with a ring of keys, flipping through them impatiently. Maintenance? I asked, casually. He glanced up. Yeah, broker asked us to prep the place. Locks are getting changed today. Place is going up for serious showings next week. I nodded, not wanting to say more. He went back to his work and dropped something. A silver key bounced once, landed at my feet. He didn't notice. I bent slowly, picked it up, and turned it in my hand. Standard cut, worn teeth. I think you dropped this, I said, but he was already inside, yelling back to someone on the phone. I looked at the key again. It was unlabeled, no tag. I slipped it into my coat pocket without thinking. Old habits, cautious habits. I walked the block twice, pretending to window shop. When I came back around, the van was gone. The door locked again. I stood in front of it for a long time. Then, I reached into my pocket, heart pounding like I was 16 again and doing something reckless. The key turned easily. The door clicked open. The cafe smelled like dust and spoiled ambition. The floors were still sticky in places, the tables pushed together. An apron hung from the back of a chair. A dried-out sponge sat in the sink like someone had tried to clean but never finished. I moved through it slowly. This place had been her dream, and now it felt like a ghost town. Near the register, I found a stack of unopened mail, final notices, overdue invoices, tax reminders, some addressed to the business, some to Rachel personally, a few with my name listed in fine print. She had used my reputation, my name. And now, she was hiding from it all. Behind the counter, the corkboard was still pinned with sticky notes and scribbled ideas. One caught my eye. Her handwriting, sharp and slanted. Launch new latte blend next month. Mom says don't overextend. Do it anyway. I let out a long breath. She hadn't just ignored my advice. She'd memorialized her rebellion. I walked to the back storage room. Empty boxes. Expired food. A framed quote on the wall. Well-behaved women seldom make history. I stared at it for a long time. I didn't want to take her dream from her. I wanted her to succeed. But now, there was nothing left to steal. Just wreckage. And someone would buy this space. Someone would turn it into something else. Erase the last of her fingerprints. I stepped back into the front room and looked at the counter. The espresso machine still worked. I flicked it on, just to see. A soft hum filled the air. That small sound lit a spark in me I hadn't felt in years. I stood there, hands wrapped around a ceramic cup, remembering how good I once was at building something out of nothing. Why did she let it get this bad without asking for help? The real estate office smelled like coffee and cold ambition. I sat across from a sharply dressed broker named Allison Tate, pretending I was just another investor with money to burn and no personal stake. She smiled brightly but without warmth. We've had a few inquiries. Some folks are thinking Baba Tea, others a boutique wine shop. With the right upgrades, it's a great space. I nodded. Cash offers preferred. Of course, The bank's eager to offload. The LLC folded with significant debt. The owner disappeared. No forwarding info. No forwarding info. She didn't leave anything behind, I asked, feigning curiosity. Allison flipped through a file. No, it was messy. But it's a clean title now, wiped by foreclosure. It can be yours in less than a week. I asked the price. It was lower than I expected. They were trying to get rid of it. I folded my hands neatly in my lap. I'd like to make an offer. Her eyes lit up. Great, under your name. I shook my head. Under Joe Ever Ventures LLC. I'll send the paperwork by noon. She didn't blink. Sounds good. I stood and shook her hand. She thought I was a silent investor. She didn't know I was her mother. And by next week, I'd own everything my daughter had left behind. The transaction was fast, a wire transfer, a few digital signatures. The bank accepted the full cash offer, without hesitation, by Friday morning. I held the deed in my hands. I sat at the café's corner table as the morning sun filtered through dusty blinds. The place looked the same, but everything had shifted. It was mine now. I turned on the lights. I turned on the lights. One bulb flickered and buzzed above the pastry case. I didn't mind. It gave the place life. I walked to the chalkboard wall near the front. Register it had been wiped clean, but faint ghost letters were still visible. Old specials, coffee notes, schedules. I picked up a piece of chalk. My hand hovered for a moment, unsure. Then I wrote one sentence across the top. Reopening soon. My heart thudded with something I hadn't felt in years. Not pride. Not revenge. Purpose. The cafe had potential. The bones were good. The location was solid. The damage was surface level. Rachel's problem wasn't the dream, it was the discipline. She had wanted fireworks. I knew how to build a steady flame. I made a list. Fresh paint, new flooring, deep cleaning, staff interviews. I didn't need to make a profit. I just needed to restore what she ruined, not for her, for myself to prove that. I still knew how to build something from ashes. I took one last look at the chalkboard before locking up. My daughter had left this place broken. Now, I would bring it back to life. What would Rachel do if she knew whose name was behind the deed? We opened quietly, just like I planned. No grand announcements, no press releases, no social media, no. Just a handwritten sign in the window, a few flyers at the farmer's market, and a fresh coat of paint in a shade of green. I chose myself subtle, inviting, clean. The name on the new sign, Joe & Co. Simple, personal, not hers. I hired young staff to college students and a woman returning to work after a long break. I trained them like I used to train my old bakery employees, with patience, firmness, and high expectations. The espresso machine was tuned. The menu was slim but intentional. No fluff, just quality, and it worked. Within 3 days, we had regulars. Within a week, customers were asking if we'd be hosting community nights. They didn't care who used to own the space. They cared about the warm bread and the quiet calm we created, that it felt good. Not in a prideful way, but in a deeply rooted, grounded way. Then, on the 10th morning, I looked up from behind the register and saw her. Rachel, standing on the sidewalk, frozen in place, staring through the glass like she'd seen a ghost. She came in like a storm. The bell above the door jingled sweetly, completely at odds with the fury on her face. Her heels clicked hard against the floor as she stormed toward the counter. This is mine, she said, low and sharp. I didn't flinch. Not anymore. You had no right, she hissed. You bought it behind my back. You used a fake name. I folded my hands. It wasn't behind your back. It was after you walked away. You think this proves something? Her voice cracked. That you were right and I was wrong. Is that what this is? It proves that the place still had value, I said quietly. You just didn't know how to protect it. Her eyes flashed with hurt, but she masked it with rage. You stole it from me. No, I said. You lost it. I simply picked it up. She stared at me, chest rising and falling. For a moment, she looked like a child again when she broke a vase and tried to glue the pieces back before I came home. But this was different. This wasn't about glue. This was about foundation. Why would you do this? She whispered. Because I couldn't stand to see your failure become a permanent scar, I said. And because I still believe in what you tried to build, Evan. If you don't. She turned away without another word. The bell jingled again as the door closed behind her. I watched her walk back down the sidewalk, shrinking in the distance. My hands trembled slightly, but I steadied them, not out of fear, out of sorrow. But what if she was never ready to own it in the first place? The truth didn't wait long to show itself. In the storeroom, behind a stack of untouched inventory records, I found a fireproof lockbox left behind. The key was still taped to the bottom, like she expected to return eventually. Inside were documents, sold invoices, account statements, printed emails. I sat cross-legged on the floor, flipping through each page with growing dread. She had been siphoning money from our shared retirement account, small withdrawals at first, then larger ones, disguised as business reinvestments. But she had lied. The money didn't go to suppliers or payroll. It went to personal expenses, travel, luxury goods, marketing consultants with zero credentials. The cafe had been in free fall for months. She hadn't just ignored my advice, she had concealed everything. I scanned the spreadsheets and made copies. Numbers didn't lie. Her name was on every signature. She had gambled with more than her dream. She had gambled with my future. I felt something inside me. Close, not in anger, in clarity. This wasn't just about business anymore. It was about betrayal. That evening, I sat at my dining table and carefully organized the paperwork. I marked every questionable withdrawal, every red flag she had hoped would stay buried. Then I picked up my phone and called my lawyer. Janine had helped me sell my bakery 15 years ago. She was calm, sharp, and discreet. I need to protect my estate, I told her. There's been financial misconduct tied to my accounts without my permission. She didn't ask for names. She just said, "Come in tomorrow. We'll start the paperwork." I attached copies of the documents to an encrypted email and included a note. "If anything happens to me, give this to the executor of my will." It felt cold, but it was necessary. Rachel hadn't just made mistakes. She had hidden them, then blamed me when they exploded. Now, I had proof, and I wasn't going to let her walk away without consequence. I clicked send and sat back in my chair. I thought about the girl I once rocked to sleep, the teenager who slammed doors, the woman who stood in my cafe shouting like I had betrayed her. I didn't want to destroy her, but I couldn't keep saving someone who didn't want to be saved. Outside, the wind picked up. A storm was coming. And this time, I wasn't stepping aside. What else has Rachel been doing behind my back? I asked Rachel to meet me at the cafe on Sunday morning, before we opened. No customers, no staff, just the two of us, like it used to be when we'd sit at my bakery after hours, talking about her future. She arrived 10 minutes late, eyes rimmed with tension. She didn't speak when she walked in. She just stood near the counter, arms crossed like armor. I motioned to a seat. "I thought you deserved the truth," I said, "and a choice." She stayed standing. I slid the folder across the table to her. Inside were the documents I'd found: financial statements, withdrawal records, vendor letters, screenshots of the shared retirement account. She didn't open it. "I know," I said softly. I didn't want to believe it either. Still, she didn't move. Her silence felt more dangerous than shouting. "I wasn't trying to punish you," I continued. "I bought the cafe because I couldn't stand seeing it die. You created something. It was flawed, but it mattered." Her jaw tightened. "You think this makes you the hero?" "No," I said. "It makes me the one cleaning up your wreckage for the last time." Rachel finally sat down. Her fingers touched the folder but didn't open it. She looked smaller than she had the last time we spoke, defeated, but not ready to surrender. "I was trying," she whispered. "I really was." "I believe that," I said, "but every time I made a mistake, I felt your voice in my head telling me I'd fail, like you were waiting for it." "It wasn't my voice," I said. "That was your own fear." She looked at me then, really looked, and for once, there wasn't fire in her eyes, just exhaustion. "I took the money because I was drowning," she said, "and I didn't want to ask for help, not from you, not after everything." I nodded. "That's why I protected what was left. Not to shame you, but because I can't fix it twice." Her lip trembled. "So now what? You keep running this place. You erase my name completely." I sat back in my chair. "No," I said. "But you won't be part of it. Not until you're ready to rebuild from the ground up. And that starts with honesty, not entitlement." She looked away, blinking fast. "I wanted this to be mine," she said. "All mine. And it could have been," I said gently. "But you thought ownership meant control. It really means responsibility." She didn't reply. She just stood, clutching her coat like a shield. I didn't buy your dream to steal it, I said. I bought it to show you what it could have been. Rachel paused at the door. She didn't look back, but she didn't slam it either. I sat alone in the quiet for a long time. Could she ever understand that this wasn't revenge, was rescue? The next 2 weeks passed in quiet rhythm. No calls from Rachel, no visits, just the café, steady and warm, filling little by little with people who didn't know the building's messy past. We added a new special to the menu: rosemary lemon scones, an old recipe from my bakery days. Customers loved them. One woman even asked for a second batch to take home. I told her they were made with memory, not just butter. Business was good. The books balanced, the space breathed again, but not a day passed when I didn't wonder if Rachel would show up. One morning, I arrived early and found something taped to the front door. A note, scribbled in rushed handwriting. I'm sorry. I still don't know how to fix it, but I'm starting with this. No name, but I knew the handwriting. Below it, wrapped in an envelope, was a cashier's check, a small amount, but it was something. The first repayment. The first step. I opened the cafe slowly that morning, holding the note in my pocket like a fragile thread of hope. Rachel wasn't ready to rebuild everything, not yet, but maybe she had finally realized she couldn't outrun the consequences. The sun slanted through the front window, casting golden light across the polished counters. A young couple came in, ordered their usual, smiled like they were part of something now, and maybe they were. That afternoon, I walked to the back wall and took down the framed quote Rachel had once hung: "Well-behaved women seldom make history." I replaced it with a new print, something simple and honest. The hardest thing to rebuild is trust, but it starts with one brick. Later, as I cleaned the espresso machine, I thought about everything we'd lost and what I'd regained. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to humiliate my daughter. I just wanted her to learn what I had learned too late in life, that failure isn't weakness, but pride, when left unchecked, can ruin everything. The door chimed again. I turned, half expecting her, but it wasn't Rachel. Just another customer, another new face, another clean slate. Still, I glanced out the window, watching the sidewalk like it might bring her back one day. Would she ever truly understand that I hadn't taken her dream, I had saved it from disappearing?